My headphones might be doing the thing. And there we go. Oh, I can hear myself. Hope everybody's doing good. It's the early game. I'm Elijah Campbell. He's Preston Thorne. He is Cale Wilson. And we are one step closer to the weekend. And we have a really exciting weekend ahead of us, Preston Thorne. An exciting one because I, as a college basketball obsessive, basically has 2 games back-to-back of top 5 teams.
Now, obviously the schedules are made in advance, and sometimes the universe just lines these things up, and it's happening. And since you have told me that my spirit animal in the college basketball world is Arizona, I will be tuning in.
As you should, because they're playing Houston. Now, if you want to see a team that just absolutely gets after it defensively, Houston's one of those teams.
See,
those are maybe the 2 toughest teams in college basketball.
That might be my game.
That's your game. That is your game. And, buddy, the Big 12, when fully healthy, most entertaining league in college basketball. But JT Toppin going down with an ACL injury.
Saw that.
That was very unfortunate because now Texas Tech is cooked. If we were putting anybody on the grill this week, I'm putting Texas Tech on the grill because they're cooked without their All-American forward, and then BYU and Richie Saunders. That was an absolute bummer. So they've gotten the ACL bug, unfortunately. But there's basketball played, not here. The game was not played here. It was played in Tuscaloosa, but if you told Dawn Staley that the game was in Tuscaloosa, she'd be like, oh, basically CLA, same home court advantage, because she doesn't lose there.
And when you say doesn't, you mean like she doesn't lose anywhere, really.
Like straight up, especially at Alabama, especially at Coleman Coliseum, you couldn't convince her that's a road game. And you couldn't convince her Alabama is anything other than the Washington Generals. You know why? Because she hadn't lost to Alabama as the head coach at South Carolina.
I heard you say that, and I heard you said hadn't. Like, you mean haven't at all?
Back when LeVar Ball was at his peak of his popularity, maybe the first sign that the universe might have we have torn off into a different dimension was the LeVar Ball popularity thing.
When he was scoring 2 points a game in college.
I never lost.
Never lost.
Solid. And he could beat MJ in a 1v1. Just remember that, guys.
Very solid saying. Never lost. I like it.
Never lost. Dawn Staley can't say that because it's true. Going into last night, now, again, South Carolina took care of business against Alabama, 76-57. That's not surprising. And I knew that wouldn't be the story of the game because they were going to cruise. They didn't shoot well from 3. Didn't matter because you still got 23 shots at the rim. Oh, yeah, and you made 18 of them. Oh, yeah, and Joyce Edwards did her thing. She scored 23 points. Oh, yeah, Medina Okot. Funky and cold Medina, 16 points and grabbed 16 rebounds and hit a 3-pointer. Oh, not just 1 3-pointer. What's better than 1, Preston Thorne? 2 3-pointers. So Medina, funky and cold on Thursday night, but cold in a good way. But going into that game, Dawn Staley's career coaching record against Alabama as the head coach of South Carolina, 24-0. We can now make that 25-0. And I went back and I did some digging. I went game log searching yesterday before the game because I wanted to see exactly how dominant this was. So 76-57. I think we all do that math. 19 points. I don't think I got that one wrong. Maybe.
Good on that. You good?
We'll crowdsource that. 19 points. Seems like cruising to a victory. That is technically below expectation for what Dawn Staley does to Alabama because going into the game last night, you know what her team's average margin of victory is over Alabama? 21.5 points. She was 24-0 against them coming into that game.
So you're saying she let us down?
Yeah, I'm saying that is actually a mild victory over Alabama compared to some of the ones she's had in her time as the head coach at South Carolina. There were some 40 pieces in there, brother.
That is remarkable.
There were not just like one 40 piece in there that could be an outlier. There were a multitude of 40 pieces in those game logs.
You know you're dominant when a 19-point win is not living up to normality.
Yes, and that win last night makes her 11-0 at Coleman Coliseum specifically. If we're looking at the breakdown, she's 12-0 at CLA against Alabama, 12-0 on the road in Coleman Coliseum, and 2-0 against them in the SEC tournament. Flexing.
Do you think anyone in Alabama was saying who can guard Tessa?
Not really.
Not last night.
Not last night.
Yeah.
Not particularly.
Now, she was getting shots.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, yes, she went 1 for 8 from 3. I am tickled pink she took 8 of them. I almost want that as the bare minimum every game. Take 8. If you make 1, all right, cool. I will live with that because you are the best shooter in college basketball.
Tessa's shot is so pretty.
Chef's kiss.
Last night she shot an air ball.
Yeah.
And I was like, good shot.
Yeah. You know
Good
what?
shot. I mean, it was perfect. It was like it had the arc, it had the fall, it had the rotation. Totally missed the rim. And I was like, all right.
That's how good you can be at one thing in the sport, where even if the result isn't what you want, and even if it's not close, you're still cool with it.
That was a good shot.
Like, you remember the Patrick Ewing clip where he's coaching Georgetown? When have you shot that shot? Is that your shot?
Step back 3. We don't coach that.
We don't coach that.
Classic.
One of the greatest. And it's so funny that came like in his final year when the ship is not sinking, it is sunk. And this is him just coming to grips with the reality of
Step back 3. We don't coach that.
Of what have I done? Who have I brought into this program? What have I done to this program that I helped turn into
Classic.
one of the nation's most relevant? You don't do that with Tessa Johnson. She did take like a step back contested 3-pointer. I don't think Don's going in the huddle going, is that your shot?
Classic.
Probably saying, yeah, the next one's going in. The next one's probably going in. But that number right there can totally live with. They're 4 of 18 from 3 on the night. I can live with 18 attempts. There are a lot of games they don't get 18 attempts, I will say. There are plenty of games where they don't get to chuck 18 3-pointers. I like it, though.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Like, surprisingly, one of the bottom teams in the NCAA in terms of, like, 3-point attempts, but I'm cool with it. But you know what? I'm cool with taking 18 last night because, again, they make them at such a high rate. You can live with a 4 for 18. And guess what? You're so good, you still won by 19 against a ranked team on the road. That's the type of program you are right now. But I did want to give a shout out too, like from watching this game. I did become not I'm trying to think of the correct word here. Incredibly pleased with how Maddie McDaniel played. That's kind of been one of the players I've been looking at here in this SEC season as a player where I'm like, okay, if you want to reach your ultimate goal, you need some bench players who can provide some solid support because heaven forbid an injury happens, again, with this team, or you get in foul trouble. Happened against LSU, right? Joyce fouled out of the game. Tanaya had 4 fouls. Medina had 4 fouls. Your bench needs to be able to come through and pull through. Maddie McDaniel last night, in 27 minutes, 4 assists, 0 turnovers, got to the line 8 times, made 7 of them, and even knocked down a 3, was 1 for 1. Again, I'm one of those, I don't care about if she scores or not. She said, well, I'll score anyway. She scored 10 points, gave you 4 assists, didn't turn the ball over once in almost 30 minutes of play. Like, she has grown a lot in this season. And if you can just get that type of solid production out of her, you're going to be in really good shape to the point where if we do get to where we finally get the end of a collision course where it feels like you're getting UConn and South Carolina again, you feel like you're maybe more prepared to be able to handle that.
Well, it's important because she's able to spell Raven when she needs minutes, and we found out sort of after the game that Raven was dealing with some sickness and that she wasn't up to 100%, and so that limited her minutes. But that's why you build those minutes in earlier in the year so you can be able to have somebody to come in, and Maddie's been improving in that role, and it only makes you feel better as a coach to be able to say, all right, for whatever reason, foul trouble, sickness, injury, whatever the case is, we have a capable point guard that can come in, and she obviously won't be able to do what Raven does and bring that whole package, but to be able to take care of the ball, facilitate the offense, that's something that is hugely valuable. So even in a game where it was never in doubt, don't think they played their best game, there's still things to build on and take away from it.
I love doing this test. It was a single-digit game going in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever feel like it was actually in doubt?
Nah, not really. No, actually, not really. That's not strong enough. No, I did not. I knew I felt like the game would expand at some point. You could see them sort of chipping away, but it was after we missed a couple of bunnies, and I never felt as if the game was gonna go away, because that has the potential to happen in a road game. You start letting them hang around, the crowd gets into it, you make a dumb play here or there, and then they make a lucky shot and they're in the game. I never felt like that was going to happen last night.
I'm looking at the win probability on Bart Torvik of that game, and it has like the chart throughout the entire game of what the win probability was. You wouldn't guess what the lowest percentage that South Carolina had at winning that game last night
90.
at any point. You said 90?
Mm-hmm.
You're really close. 92.
Really?
Even the computers say.
That tracks.
Even when it was a 7-point game. They said, nah.
That tracks with how I felt watching the game.
Yeah. And you can even tell, it's one of those games, too, you just take the scoreboard away. Which team is operating at a higher level, is executing what it is that they want to do. And this is where this team's at right now. They lost the second and third quarters by a combined 6 points.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we only counted the points in this game in the second and third quarter, Alabama wins it. But guess what? South Carolina outscored them 21-8 in the first quarter, and they outscored, I believe, it was 19-7 in the fourth.
And again, I would position that this is exactly what you want as a coach. You want to win the game, but you want to have things that you still need to work on. Coming off a huge emotional game, so there was always the potential for a slight letdown. But obviously, this team and the institution does not do that. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the W, and you still get a chance to say, hey, look, ladies, this is what we have to work on.
Yeah. And you get somebody like Maddie McDaniel who gets to play more minutes because Raven is sick. But however, hey, Darren Peterson, she was ill, and she still played in a game in which the team's favored to win by like 20 points. Hey, buddy. Hey, this is what you do in these situations. Oh, you're not feeling very good? Hey, sometimes your team needs you anyway. So shout out to Raven Johnson for even not feeling well and like being genuinely sick and giving them 19 minutes of action last night. Warrior mentality. That's what it's supposed to look like when one of the best players on your team is called upon to actually play and not just be like, oh, sorry, coach, I'm hanging it up tonight. Can't do it. So shout out to Raven Johnson. Hey, shout out to this basketball team and Dawn Staley, because now she is 25-0 against Alabama. I can't think of another thing in sports outside of Harlem Globetrotters, Washington Generals that is maybe more one-sided in a series.
They do. Next game, better watch out. They're due for one.
If you're an Alabama women's basketball fan, you're probably thinking this can't go on forever, right?
Right.
We have to get him eventually. We'll have to get him eventually. Oh, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will get to our pal Joe, who wants to say good morning on the other side, but we'll also revisit a conversation we had yesterday about Ray Tanner's comments on the cyclical nature of college sports and whether or not that applies for South Carolina in terms of how the last couple of years have gone in men's athletics. We'll discuss all that coming up next here in the early game.
taking a look here at the traffic. So far, so good. No accidents to report. Only our long-term beloved road construction. Your Lady Gamecocks last night get a big-time win over number 25 Alabama on the road, 76-57. We'll get into that more when we come back.
Now, before we get back into Ray Tanner's thoughts on the cyclical nature of sports, whether or not that still really applies to the men's sports around here in 2026, we will go to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines as our pal Joe is on the line with us. Good morning, Joe. Welcome to the early game, my friend.
So listen, man, as I continue to watch these ladies play, Okat is gonna, if she stays consistent with the way that she's playing now, can we agree that she wasn't looking like this earlier in the season? Can we agree on that?
I think so. I think she's playing stronger now. I think there's more of an assertion of her dominance. I feel like some bigs over the course of a year kind of have to be reminded, hey, you are 3 inches taller than anybody guarding you right now. You can score when that ball gets to you. I think she's definitely grown into that role a lot better than she did in, December?
Right. Because I remember you guys were kind of like, hey, Dawn has big girls, but she's not the big girl that we usually have. But I think that Dawn has kind of molded her into that young lady that she wants her to be on the basketball court. And so now it's like you kind of have to pick your poison. You know, are you going to protect the middle? And I'm talking about the teams that have to defend our offense. Mm-hmm. Are you going to protect the middle, or are you going to keep these ladies from being sharpshooters? And that's a good thing for us as we continue to move forward. It builds her confidence, and it also says, hey, look, if they're going to take this in the middle away, then ladies, you know, let's be prepared to hit these jumpers. And we've shown that when they do cloud the middle, that we can hit those shots when they count. It's just cool to watch it develop into what I think that Dawn wants to see from the ladies. Mm-hmm. Another point that you made, man, I'm going to piggyback right off of Maddie McDaniel. Ever since she's been a freshman, I've just had a love for her because she's a smaller guard, but she finds ways to score. And she protects the ball. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that she can get to the basket. I've seen her get to the basket, and she makes some of the craziest shots, man. But I love the way that she's playing and the way that she's developing also. And the future looks so good at the point guard position. You know, last night's game allowed a lot of the young ladies to come in and play. And I thought that as Okat has developed, the younger ladies that are coming off the bench have developed as well. I just don't see anybody. I mean, it's the SEC, so some teams are going to present problems because we play these teams year in and year out, especially for the teams who've had coaches for years and they think that they know how to defend us. So I'm very interested in how we will continue to dominate the SEC this year as the season comes to an end as far as the regular season and go into the tournament and all that good stuff. But yeah, man, I'm very impressed with the way the development is with these younger ladies. And also Okat, because she just came in this year. This is her first year with us. And so I'm excited about it, man. It's been interesting to watch. Another thing, man, good game on the softball team last night. They won another game. I think they've only lost 2 games on the season. And so Gamecock sports is really exciting right now, man. Even though it's not football season, but yeah, good show as usual. And as we're talking about the ladies, man, where's my girl been, man? I haven't heard her on the radio in a while.
Jen will be back on Monday. Yes, she is. She is taking it easy this week.
Cool.
She'll be back on. She'll be back on Monday though. So she's definitely listening. Made her picks in the Corley Pool Solutions Checker Flag Challenge yesterday. So she'll be back.
Course. Yeah. Who says that we can't function without the ladies, man?
Barely. Yeah. The thing is running rough around here, but we getting it done. Appreciate you as always, Joe.
Yes, sir. You guys have a good day, man.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you as always, Joe. Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to picking and choosing what you try to take away from the South Carolina team, good telltale sign of a championship caliber team is you take away one thing, you got to live with the other, right? Do you want to try to guard the perimeter and make sure South Carolina's not hitting the three-point shots they get? Okay, now you're giving up something inside. This team can just beat you in a variety of ways. And the thing, too, is, I haven't got to mention, they look like they're just having fun in the process,
and that's a huge point. And, again, as I will always continue to say, yes, the three-pointers are cool. Yes, the outside shooting is awesome. But nothing warms Dawn's heart like a big getting a double-double in the first half. She's like, now this is playing basketball. This is basketball. All that other stuff, that's fine.
This is how I drew it up. This is how I like it. I'm comfortable winning this way.
Right.
But we want to revisit some of Ray Tanner's comments from last weekend and kind of take one more look at it, and we'll play it again here. This is what Ray Tanner said on Saturday in regards to some of the men's sports struggles so far on campus.
Well, the thing that, it is cyclical. I believe that. That it happens that way. There's ups and downs, and, we're talking about men's basketball this morning a little bit, one of my friends, and, just a couple years ago, Lamont won 26 games. So did he forget how to coach? No. Things happen, and, for whatever reason, not everybody, there's 16 teams in the SEC, and, not everybody can be in that mode, but I know tonight the men and women play at the same time at 8:30, so I follow it closely, and I live vicariously through what's going on. I love being here, and you want everybody to do well and to win, and you check the softball scores if you're not there, or you see how equestrian team's doing. That's just what it's all about.
Now, I think the phrase that was used that is going to be getting the most run is just cyclical. Mm-hmm. And I tend to agree that college sports can be cyclical, but at certain places, the cycle looks different than others. And I think the problem right now is the low end of the cycle is at a place where you don't need it to be when it comes to continuing to get fan base. Like, here's the thing about this fan base that I love is that you still show up, you still tune into shows like this to hear about your football team, your men's basketball team, the baseball team, regardless of how they're doing. But at some point, if the results aren't coming, you're going to beat down really the fan base. And there's a lot of it is never going to go away because that's the beauty of college sports, right? Is that some of this is so ingrained in us that you'll be watching Gamecock athletics for the rest of your life. It is such a staple of what it is that you do, identity, everything like that. But when it does get this low, it gets discouraging to the point where it will start affecting business. And if you look at other schools in your conference, your peers, their low end of the cycle doesn't look like this. And while, yes, I do agree there's a cyclical nature to college sports. In 2026, you can kind of change how that cycle looks because now we are in an age of roster movement, in a different age of roster construction for all sports. This is not an isolated football, basketball, baseball sort of thing. There are quicker fixes now and quicker turnaround periods than we've ever had at any point in the history of these sporting events. The thing that I wouldn't be nonchalant about is just how low the cycle is. And if you have a limited ceiling in your cycle, yours is going to look so much differently than everybody else's to where you can't just accept the cyclical nature of sports.
Yeah, also I wouldn't be nonchalant in assuming that the cycle is just going to trend back up.
Right.
Because it doesn't have to, right? As I said yesterday, it's not like the tide or the sunrise. Things can happen where it does not come back up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I totally disagree with that statement. I think in the realm of like high school sports, you hear high school sports sort of talk about like this, and I think that's more true in high school. You have a team that's pretty good, But then, oh man, let me tell you about this ninth grade class that's coming.
They're going to take their lumps freshman, sophomore year, but by the time they're all juniors, seniors,
that
watch out.
concept works. In college sports, especially today, where you can make moves, you can make adjustments to your roster now, even if it is cyclical, that cycle's moving much faster. It's going much quicker, and we have to be very cautious about lying down with the dogs for too long.
Yeah, because if you just assume it's going to go back up, yeah, it may go back up a little bit. You know, the cycle graph might just
Go back up from
condensed.
where?
It's like, oh, in basketball, we went from 2 SEC wins to 4. It's a great year. That's the cycle going back up. That's still not acceptable, right? You're still not at a place in acceptability. Or football where, oh, well, we beat Kentucky low end of the cycle. Well, we beat Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Auburn one year. 3 wins in the SEC. That's still not the cycle you want to live in. That's still at a place that needs, dramatic improvement. And I think that's kind of where we're existing right now, is the cycle that they're existing in right now isn't necessarily acceptable. But coming up next, part of that cycle is the men's basketball team. But does more money equal more wins? What else has to go into roster construction? Because we've talked a lot about the money situation. We'll get to that coming up next.
Pressing here for the good folks at Integrated Media. The spring is on the way. You can feel it in the air. My boy Elijah has on shorts. It means spring is coming. And so what that means is the folks from Integrated Media can help you with your outdoor setup to get you ready to enjoy all the great sporting events that are on the way. The big basketball tournament, the big golf tournament, all the things that are happening, Integrated Media can get you set up. Samsung Terrace TVs that are waterproof, Sonos outdoor speakers for TV and music, Wi-Fi that works indoor and outdoor so you can have all your devices playing at the same time without having to suffer through any dreaded lag time or buffering. From home theater setup, adjusting your thermostat, or monitoring your security systems from your cell phone, Integrated Media is who you need to call. So call Nathan and Michael at 803-948-8327. That's 803-948-8327. Or reach them online at integratedmediainc.com.
Checking in here on the traffic as our good luck has still continued. No accidents to report, just our long-term road construction in Horry County, Lexington, and Richland County. 68 degrees outside today as we start this Friday. Gamecock softball team came out victorious yesterday over Washington, 8-1. Gamecock baseball begins their weekend series today versus Army at 2 p.m. Women's basketball comes over victorious over number 25 Alabama, 76-57 last night. And men's basketball hosts Mississippi State tomorrow at 1 p.m.
We've had so many discussions when it comes to men's basketball this year and why this is happening again. And they're playing Mississippi State on Saturday. You're playing the Chucker to end all Chuckers and Josh Hubbard.
I got to tell you, I'm intrigued.
He is an intriguing player.
I'm just going to say, I'm intrigued.
I would say he's a good player. Usually someone's averaging the amount of points that someone like that does. You'd be like, oh, they must be really good. Well, he loses them a lot of games too. They will live and die by the Hubbard, by the hub.
Not bad.
And you know what? It does make for intriguing basketball. Again, I kind of equate him to being the sports version of the Magic 8-ball. You just shake it up and you're going to get 1 for 8 show up from 3 or 10 for 16 and beat Auburn at home.
30 points from behind the arc, man.
Yeah.
That doesn't suck.
And considering, I think, he scored, I know, scored 46, so it was en route to a 46-point game.
That also doesn't suck.
No, it does not. No, that will do in that game. So they have at least a task at hand of guarding him. But we talked a lot about this year, about the losses that have piled up and where they are at financially in terms of what they've been able to get, throw to this basketball team. And it's pretty well established there at the bottom of the SEC when it came to funding for the roster. Now, I was sent something yesterday, and it's a pretty trusted source that kind of gives like the estimates for a lot of the budgets for everybody else in the SEC. And I will read off some of these to you. But I'll tell you right now, someone else has already calculated the average. If you go to nil-ncaa.com, it gives you the average of what SEC teams spent on their college basketball rosters, and the average in the SEC is $9.7 million. Kentucky, over $20 million. They're like the outlier here. And then you have a cluster of teams that spent at least $10 million. Vanderbilt being on that list, Florida, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Auburn for basketball, Texas. And then Georgia, apparently, like in that 8 to 10 range. LSU in that middle class, along with Mississippi State. Alabama's surprisingly low on that list. It's looking like it's in the 8 to 9 kind of range right there, which I had a hard time believing considering how good their roster is. And then you go down to like the bottom, there's like Oklahoma and South Carolina. And South Carolina's below Oklahoma. And the numbers I've heard with South Carolina have kind of varied from like 4.5 to 5.5, kind of in that range, right? But nonetheless, we could just be, playing semantics here of what the number actually is. The fact of the matter is it's the lowest in the SEC for basketball. However, I will say the most important thing is, yes, you need to be able to spend more to be able to be competitive with these teams. It's also going to be how you spend that money too, because there are a lot of teams in there that are on the higher end of things that have not spent that wisely. Clearly, Kentucky, if you would have told the anonymous Kentucky donor that apparently dropped $4 million on the roster individually, one individual, would they be thrilled with being 8-5 in the SEC? No. They would drop that money because they want to win a national championship, right? Kentucky, for what they spent, not getting bang for their buck. You look at some of the big money players they got in the transfer portal this offseason. Jalen Lowe, injuries have kind of kept him from playing this year. Denzel Aberdeen, a guy who came off the bench for Florida, is now getting starter minutes at Kentucky, has been good, but not been what they paid for. And then Mohamed Diabate they got from Alabama, a role player that they paid heavily for, and he's still just a role player at Kentucky. You noticing a theme here?
I think there's something there.
Especially when you have a large sample size of certain players just being role players, then you can't be surprised when they are nothing but kind of just another version of that role when they come to you. Now, the other end of that spectrum, I would have hypothesized that Vanderbilt would obviously be above your South Carolinas, your LSUs, Oklahoma even, but I didn't think they were spending $10+ million, right? But they are. Like, they've gotten a lot of financial investment. However, they have spent it significantly more wisely, because I was trying to just see if there is a correlation between just spending the money and then winning. Do the wins come? I will say the main conclusion here is it certainly makes it easier.
Of course, just like life.
But what Vanderbilt did, not reaching for stars and overpaying for some of these players. Now, they still have to pay good money for a lot of that starting lineup, but they went for players that fit a role. But I'm not saying as in like a role that they play well. Their role players are better than Kentucky's role players, and that's kind of been one of the big differences. When they played in Nashville earlier this year, Vanderbilt kicked the hell out of them in that game. Blew them out, and looked really impressive doing that. But you look at the best players for Vanderbilt, Tyler Tanner, a local high school recruit from Brentwood Academy. That was an under-the-radar guy coming out of high school. He's one of the best point guards in the country right now. Duke Miles, a big-time money transfer because he was a great shooter at Oklahoma. He has been a really good shooter and one of the leading scorers for this Vanderbilt team. Tyler Harris, a Washington transfer. So, again, having to spend money to get somebody out of the Big Ten and into the SEC. A really good player at what he does and fits exactly what they want to do defensively. Again, when you watch Vanderbilt, they don't like to overhelp on defense. The reason teams have a lower assist rate against them is because they don't offer a lot of help on defense. Now, they do on occasion, but they try to win that battle one-on-one defensively. That's kind of Mark Byington's thing. And Tyler Harris is a great on-ball defender. Helps them out a lot. And then you look at Tyler Nickel, kind of a college basketball journeyman from North Carolina to Virginia Tech and now to Vanderbilt. And he's one of the best shooters in college basketball. They bought high on an elite shooter, not a good shooter, an elite shooter. And he has changed the entire floor geography of that basketball team. And then you look at someone like A.K. Okereke. Not going to be as much as somebody like a Tyler Harris or a Duke Miles or even a Tyler Nickel, but they landed on the evaluation because he was a 6'7" big at Cornell, but he was built like a Mack truck. And while he was maybe like a 31, 32% three-point shooter at Cornell, his free throw percentage was almost 80, which tells you there's maybe some positive regression that can happen with his three-point shooting. And guess what? He's getting close to 40% making threes this year for that Vanderbilt team. And he's a weapon outside and inside. So you look at how Kentucky and Vanderbilt have been built, with Kentucky spending $12 million estimated more than Vanderbilt. There's so much more to it than just money, but money gets you in the ballpark. But Vanderbilt, I think, is maybe the best example we can maybe use around here as to how you nail the evaluation and how that can change your outlook on the season.
It changes everything. And it's so important because this idea of we're just going to throw money at the issue is not something that I think that, one, we can afford to do, and two, I'm not even sure that is the solution. And so, yeah, I'd like to continue this conversation because I do think the concept of people who are overpaying and people who are not paying enough to get in the game, that's kind of where we are, but you have the other side. And I'm not sure either place is very fun to be as a fan.
No, absolutely not. If you're not even in the ballpark financially to be able to get to where you can afford having a Tyler Nickel and a Tyler Harris, those guys, not cheap to bring in, or a Duke Miles. Again, in their roles, they were elite in those roles, right? Like shooting. Tyler Nickel was a great shooter everywhere he's been. Is going to translate. Duke Miles, a really good shooter everywhere he's been. Also, he's played like over 100+ games as a college basketball player. Played a lot of basketball. That helps out a lot too. But coming up next, This is a show that loves scandals. And there is one popular high school, quote quotes, high school in Florida that may be taking some pretty questionable money. We'll tell you who that is coming up next. I love a good scandal. And I know that us on this show, we have become, hopefully, your source of all the more unique scandals in sports. We talked about Canadian curling.
Yes.
A cheating scandal that happened earlier.
And one of the great things about being this early in the morning is we get to be first.
Yes.
Because I listen to sports talk radio throughout the day, and they get to have their takes. But I'm like, oh, no, we had that take at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Which is even better.
So I always feel pretty confident about what we're saying here.
Now, this headline's one that you may have missed, but it doesn't make it any less absurd once you hear it. Anybody heard of IMG Academy? I-M-and-G.
If I recall correctly, a school from around here played them recently.
That
Yes.
may be true.
Yes. Gray Collegiate played them a couple years ago in Florida.
Correct.
Now, they got destroyed, but they played them.
Because IMG is one of those schools, I'm going to put that in air quotes, where it's basically an athletics factory, right? And they make a ton of money. They are in the business of sports and the business of trying to sell the dream of playing at the next level and then the level beyond that to parents and kids. Well, here's a headline from The Athletic. IMG to pay $1.72 million fine for accepting tuition from parents tied to the Mexican cartel.
Okay. Now we're cooking. All right. Okay.
$1.72 million. Now, the conduct was not, quote, voluntarily self-disclosed. So something, obviously, it was not voluntarily self-disclosed, but there was some work to find out where that came from and some parents who were paying a lot of money into tuition. Apparently, they're paying for in the spring of, or the year of 2023, the school year 2023, the parents in question paid about $98,000 for a full academic year over at IMG. So for a school that already maybe has some questionable things in the cogs of that machine, I didn't think cartel money would be something that would find its way into a high school sports scandal.
Do you remember a school by the name of Bishop Sycamore?
That is maybe the most, well, also heavy quotations on the whole school thing.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, I thought that was bad, and now I don't think Bishop Sycamore's that bad anymore.
I still think they're that bad, yeah.
Fantastic.
But at
if
least
you haven't seen that documentary on Bishop Sycamore, it is fantastic.
it's one of those stories that's just never going to get old in terms of how shocking it is, how somebody can just simply make up a school and pretty much scam parents and kids out of having them play for a non-real school.
And I mean fantastic in the worst way possible.
Fantastic. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's almost unbelievable that they got as far as they did. It's one thing to make up a school, right? Have you ever seen the movie Accepted with Justin Long?
I have not.
Hilarious movie. And the premise of the movie is Justin Long, who is playing a graduating high school senior, didn't get accepted into any of the schools he applied to. So he made up his own school, the South Harmon Institute of Technology.
If you can't beat them, or if you can't join them, create them. Right.
And, of course, that whole movie it's funny because of how absurd it is. Very quotable movie. But it is so absurd that you're like, yeah, this is a fun movie idea because this is not something that would remotely be close to happening in real life. Until Bishop Sycamore came along. And ironically enough, the team that they played on national television, because they were able to weasel their way into an ESPN Sunday afternoon game before the NFL season started. And, of course, got beat the way you would expect them to get beat in that game, to the point where it was dangerous to continue playing that football game. But ironically enough, the team they were playing was taking money. Well, not at that time. Would go on to end up taking money and have to pay almost $2 million in fines because one of the parents had cartel ties.
I'm just looking up so I can give the official title of the Bishop Sycamore documentary is BS High. Great title. Whoever wrote copywriter, you did your thing. BS High. You need to, if you're interested in just the machinations and to even grow it a little bit further, the bold new world of high school athletics. I think this is a really important piece. It's fantastic in the idea of it exposes a lot of the dirty underbelly of a lot of things that's happening. In large, it's outrageous and ridiculous all at the same time. So it's a really interesting piece, but it all ties into a lot of these things that we're talking about. And so, yes, money from the whatever that means, whatever that means, the Mexican cartel.
Yeah, as if there's not a bunch of different operations that are going on. There's just one. I don't think they're monopolized.
But yeah.
Not an expert in the field, but I don't think it's a monopoly.
I'm not sure if any of this stuff should necessarily shock you, though it should intrigue you, because I do think it's probably more widespread than you would think. And
it's one of those things I think, at some point, doing like a real deep dive on a lot of these type of schools and kind of like a lot of what goes into, like a place like IMG is just so big. And they make, if you've ever seen video of what their facilities look like, it's absurd. I mean, there are probably some kids that are playing at IMG for, playing football, and they're good, but they're not elite. And they're going to go to a place like, I don't know, Eastern Michigan. And they're going to go to those facilities and be like, this is a downgrade, right? They have the nicer facilities than a lot of Division I college football programs. I would say in a majority of Division I college football programs. It is a big, capital B business, right? And I think once you do reach a certain point, you lose the plot of what high school sports ends up becoming about. And I think this story is just kind of a microcosm of how it's kind of jumped the shark a little bit in terms of where you're accepting money from, because they'll accept it from anybody, clearly.
No, we're not going to take that money. We have principals here.
Is anything sacred anymore?
The Canadian curling thing taught me that no, nothing is sacred anymore. Preston Thorne is subbing out. My man Nick Harvey from Team WIS is subbing in for the last 2 hours of the show. Hour number 2 coming up next because we got women's basketball win to talk about and big baseball weekend at Founders.
Checking out the traffic here, and 1 hour into the show, we still have no accidents to report. Doing a good job out there. Just our long-term road construction that everyone's in love with. It's cloudy outside right now, 68 degrees, 13-mile-per-hour winds.
Hour number 2 of the early game starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell. He is Nick Harvey from Team WIS, subbing in for our own Preston Thorne. And, of course, our man, Kel Wilson, finishing out the week, filling in for Jen Jensen behind the glass. And I think we have determined that we will officially knight Kale as part of a ceremony at the end of this to make him officially a member of the early game crew. You're an early game knight, sir.
Oh, man, I
About to be.
cannot wait. I can't wait for this.
Sounds magical.
I couldn't find a sword, though, I will say. Unfortunately, I could not find a sword to do the deed.
I have a tiny lightsaber in my car that I could go get during one of the breaks.
Perfect.
It's super small. It was like a cake decoration, I think.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's all we need. Honestly, that will work.
All right, yeah.
That'll be the highlight of my week. That'll go on my LinkedIn.
It should. It should go on your
take
LinkedIn,
pictures.
your resume.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that, if you want to tattoo it on you somewhere, also not a terrible idea because then that lives forever.
If I ever get another broadcasting job, why should we hire you? Well, I was knighted on the early game, so I feel like that is my selling point.
Show him the arm tat.
Instant qualification
Yes.
right there.
Yes. Thank you.
Immediate qualification. Now, if Don Staley wanted to reach out to the University of Alabama and say, I want an immediate qualification to have my name on Coleman Coliseum, there's no legal basis for the University of Alabama to deny her of that. You know why? Because South Carolina beat Alabama last night 76-57. And we could break down the game all we want. But really, the fun thing to point out here, as we did to start off the show, is Don's dominance, if you will, over Alabama. Because here's the thing about college basketball, too. Sometimes you just get got, right, in games. You would assume that if there is a team that a coach like Don Staley would have a blemish against, that it would be against a team like Alabama who might be in the top 25 here and there, and they're a ranked team this year. They were ranked when they played them at CLA in the first SEC game of the season. They were ranked last night when they went to Coleman Coliseum and beat them by 19 points. And you would assume it'd be like a team like, Missouri.
Sure.
Missouri got them once, right? Randomly, but Missouri got them once. But that hasn't happened. Because now, after last night, Don Staley is 25-0 against Alabama. 25-0. And going into last night, too, the average margin of victory in those 24 games previous to last night, 21.5 points.
Wow. That's tough.
It's a clobbering.
That's just not ideal if you're a fan of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And they don't have a bad. I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago. We knew because Don is perfect versus Alabama, but there have been some struggles on the road when they go to Tuscaloosa. But it doesn't matter. Apparently, it just doesn't matter.
That
because Don
struggle
gets
maybe
it done.
constitutes
Right.
only winning by 15.
Yeah, you get a little scared maybe in the beginning, and then they just pull away. Whatever. It's fine.
Technically, last night, you won by 19. You can reasonably put an only in there, as in they only won by 19, right?
Only.
You can reasonably put that given the history of the margin of victory average in this series.
Nail biter.
Because you obviously can't call it a rivalry. You call it a series. You play each other every year, and one team wins every year.
Yeah. Yeah, you could argue the 18-0 record versus LSU is becoming a similar topic of conversation, although that's just how much of a perennial powerhouse South Carolina is. You've got an LSU team that's in the top 5 or, top 10 at least every time you play them, and it's a rivalry, except they've won 18 of the last 18 meetings. That's just, that's
still
sad.
Can't technically call it a rivalry if it's that one-sided. Now, clearly, there's more emotion invoked by that matchup than there is, and there's more... not just emotion, there's more drama kind of invoked in that matchup than there is when it comes to South Carolina and Alabama, because at least some of those games against LSU have been close. Like the game Saturday night was awesome.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely
a banger.
It was. A lot of
fantastic game.
A lot of fun.
Last night, I don't think anybody ever really thought South Carolina was going to lose that game. At any point, even if you are the most pessimistic Gamecock fan, I don't think you watched that and thought, oh, lead's cut to 7.
Oh, they got blood.
Here we go.
Right.
No. And if you look at, Bart Torvik, which is like the analytics site for women's basketball, they have the game flow chart and the win probability chart throughout the game, and it never dipped below 92%. Not once. Not once in that game did it dip below 92%.
What do you even say in that situation? That's just utter dominance.
And what's really funny is, too, I counted it up. I mean, I went through every year of game logs since Dawn's been there to see how many times she's won at Coleman Coliseum. Last night made her 12-0 at Coleman Coliseum. She has made 12 trips to Tuscaloosa and has won all of them.
Wow. That's...
And obviously in pretty dominant fashion.
Yeah.
In a lot of them, too.
That's, again, when you can, I don't want to say confidently, because, like, yes, you go into games confidently, right? And at this point in the season, you're trying to close out the SEC regular season title. But to have a team like Alabama this late in the season, and I'm sure Dawn probably doesn't pay that much attention to her, like, all-time statistical records.
Right, because she's worried about cutting down nets.
Right.
The big fish that there are to catch.
But when you look at the rest of the remaining schedule and you get to see Alabama there, and you just, like, maybe in the back of the head, she's going, that'll be fun.
Barbecue chicken alert.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what ends up popping up in her head, is that this is barbecue chicken alert.
Yeah, that's just...
Chalk it up as a dub.
What a performance, man. That's... Joyce Edwards had herself a night. Again.
She was great.
Just...
And here's the thing, they only got 23 shots at the rim last night. Before the LSU game, they were getting about 30 shots per game at the rim. They only got 23, according to Torvik, with tracking it. They made 18 of them. Medina was dominant. This team's looking really good. And we haven't had you on since they did beat LSU, because we did put out a poll question earlier in the week that I found the results to be pretty interesting, but fair. I'm not saying that I disagree with a lot of it, because I understand any type of skepticism. But if UConn and South Carolina were to announce a game that they are playing today, this very moment, we had three options. Are you picking South Carolina because they're more battle-tested this year? SEC clearly better than the Big East. UConn because you remember what happened last year? Or you say no clue, it's a coin flip game. 45% said UConn because they remember what happened in that title game last year. 32.5% say South Carolina because they are more battle-tested. And then 22%, which I was a part of, no clue. I think that's a coin flip game.
I would have been a part of that 22% too. Again, it's hard because UConn hasn't seen the same competition, but it's obvious how good they are with the way that they're dominating their opponents. Like, it's evident that they're going to be back in the big dance and going on a deep run. But again, South Carolina has definitely seen the tougher schedule and has, in some of those games where they're playing tougher teams, quote unquote, they're still beating them by 20 or more points. I mean, look at the Vanderbilt game that they had a couple, was it, I guess, a month ago, a couple weeks ago, whatever. It's just like
during our first winter weather weekend.
Winter storm, yeah.
Yes.
Ugh.
Our first winter weather weekend, that did see them absolutely destroy Vanderbilt, and that game wasn't even particularly close, and Vanderbilt's played really well since then.
Wasn't that the beginning? That was the beginning of February, the beginning of the month?
It was. Yeah, that was conference championship weekend in the NFL.
And it was like 20, 30 degrees outside, and I woke up and got out of bed, headed here, and it was 70 degrees
today
at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Dog, I'm wearing shorts and a T-shirt.
That feels like it was so long ago.
I know.
It does, yeah.
Just a couple weeks.
Weird.
Wasn't that long. And I know it happens here a lot, too, but like the saying, I guess, when I was living in Tennessee was, if you don't like the weather, just give it 20 minutes.
Yeah. It's pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I think that's true in a lot of places, right? That if you don't like it, just give it a second. But we haven't had you on, too, since the beginning of baseball season. Now, clearly, expectations for this baseball team a little low going into this year compared to what happened last year. And we'll look at the weekend ahead, and we do have some tickets to give away, but I'm not giving them out just yet. Just wait for that cue to call if you want tickets to one of the games this weekend. But so far, we have seen solid starting pitching, especially from last weekend. I thought we saw really good starting pitching. We have some variance in hitting. We already have one loss that you didn't love. We already have a discourse going on about being tired after 2 games of the season. But I think so far with what we've seen this week, if we just turned the page and looked at what we've done this week so far, I'm encouraged by pulling away and winning comfortably against Wofford. And then 24 hours later, run ruling somebody. I don't care if it's Gardner Webb. I don't care if it's former Arizona Diamondbacks pitcher Brandon Webb. I don't care if it's the gardener at your house, right? I don't care who it is. You run rule somebody, I will take that. That is an acceptable result. But given what we've seen so far this season, Nick, your reason for optimism for this this season? Has it changed any? I know it's hard to kind of parse through a lot of that because the level of competition is not remotely close to what you're going to see in SEC play. But just based off what you've seen so far, is it something that you can feel confident in?
I have a reason to be confident in that pitching staff. Like, I think Terry Rooney caught a lot of flack last year in the way that pitching staff was constructed and the way that they performed. But you had your Friday starter go out early, just like you have this year with Jake McCoy going out for the season before it even started.
Unfortunately, some similar pretenses to how last year was, yes.
But this pitching staff has responded really well. Like, I genuinely, I went to the game against the Saturday game after the doubleheader on Friday, and I thought the pitching staff did an incredible job. What I'm worried about and why I have reason to think that they might struggle again is they got the bats going Wednesday. That was awesome. They get the run rule. They picked it up in the 8th inning, which to me is like it took them a while to get to 8 runs in the first place. They were down 2-1 for a couple of the early innings there.
There was a straining the bases loaded moment in the game, which you never, especially considering what happened last year and even the year prior, I think we've had a lot of discourse, maybe not as much as talking about the football team's offensive line. Close to it is leaving runners on base in baseball.
Lord,
I think we've had a very similar type of discourse.
Well, because I think what it was, the opening weekend stat, they were like 4 for 33 with runners in scoring position.
Yuck.
Which is just, that's not, you can't do that against Northern Kentucky. Like, I don't, again, I don't care about the level of competition, but like your opening weekend, you can't be stranding that many guys.
Right.
Versus a team that you should probably have run ruled at least once.
Yeah, I think it was 9 a game. You're straining 9 a game in that series.
I don't know. If they can just find a way to get that offense going a little bit earlier, then I think you've got potential to put something special together and maybe win a couple series that you're not supposed to win, because that pitching staff's going to do it for you. I mean, I really think I haven't seen what I would call a bad pitching performance yet to start this season.
No, especially to start. I mean, the Gardner-Webb game, Hodges, I think, maybe lost some control at a certain point.
Yeah.
And that's one guy, though, that I really want to see get coming along because he is left-handed, right?
Oh, yeah.
You love having some of that diversity in arms. That way it kind of makes you a little more versatile with matchups. And if he can prove that he can be a guy that either is starting in the midweek or a guy that you have in your bullpen to where if you need to pitch against a left-handed hitter and that matchup just arises, that you can feel confident that he's going to go in there, throw strikes, and take care of business, create weak contact, all that good stuff that pitchers are supposed to do. I would like to see maybe a little better performance out of him in terms of just control, but I still am leaving room for seeing what else he can do, and I'd like to see him in maybe some more high-leverage situations. But once he left, I thought Zach Russell did a pretty respectable job coming in there and kind of course correcting a little bit. Well,
and that's the thing is I feel like the middle relief and honestly the closing of this pitching staff so far has been just as impressive as the starters. Like Saturday, I mean, they gave up a couple runs there on a weird fielding situation, which happened a couple times last year, and that did make me nervous because please don't do that again. But no, I mean, the middle reliever, and I think they had 2 middle relievers come in and then a closer on Saturday, if I remember correctly. I was standing with Rick Henry the entire game, and I heard some of the best stories that I've ever heard in that 3-hour time frame.
As one does. Yeah, going to a baseball game with Rick Henry probably makes you a certified historian of sports in the city of Columbia, South Carolina.
I feel like I can get an honorary I Know Ball title now because I got to just
I know local
classics.
ball.
Yeah.
The lore of local ball.
But I really didn't ever feel a time where, like, there was a serious threat. Like, there were points where the pitching staff got itself into some pretty tough situations and then turned around and left runners on the base. I mean, they were able to get themselves out of scary situations, runners at the corners, whatever it may be. I think they loaded them twice and got out of it. So, I mean, it's situations like that where I'm happy with the pitching staff so far. I want to see them against some higher level bats, but I also want to see the offense on the flip side get more competitive and get off to earlier starts and just punch people in the mouth.
And the beauty of baseball is you do not have to wait long to see more games. We have a series this weekend, kind of a series, a little bit different. We'll tell you who the Gamecocks are facing, and we'll get a pretty good look at what Dr. Harvey is prescribing for this baseball team. All that coming up next here in the early game.
Checking back in here on the traffic. We're about midway through the show. Still no accidents to report. Doing a good job out there, guys. This weekend, baseball has a interesting series. We're going to go into that as we've got the morning meeting coming up right after this.
We got a big weekend at Founders Park, not just because South Carolina's playing, but it's an event. It's the Salute the Troops weekend over at Founders. And to get you ready for it, that's how we're going to kick off today's morning meeting.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Repeat after me. Today will be an awesome day.
Of course it will.
Let's go.
You already know.
Good morning, great today. Today will be an awesome day. Good morning, great today. Today will be an awesome day.
And it's always an awesome day when you can have a day at the ballpark. How about 3 full days at the ballpark? I'm just going to run through the schedule first, right? And not just the games that the Gamecocks are participating in. At 2 o'clock today, South Carolina plays Army. Mike Krzyzewski not walking through that door. Neither is Bob Knight. 6 o'clock, Air Force versus Navy. So almost right after that game. And then Saturday at 1 o'clock, South Carolina playing Navy. David Robinson, I don't hope, is walking through that door. I don't think Roger Staubach either. But if you would like to attend that game, I've got good news for you. Because the Ticket Ferry, strangely enough, visited me holding a gun and saying, if you don't give away these tickets, something bad's going to happen. And I don't want something bad to happen. For that game against Navy, 1 o'clock, Founders Park, we have 2 family 4-packs of tickets to give away. Just be callers 1 and 2 to 803-404-6100. And if you hear our pal Cale Wilson's voice, then you are in luck. Then you get 4 tickets.
That took such a turn.
If you don't take these tickets, Elijah may never show back up because of the Ticket Ferry and what he's going to do to him.
The Ticket Ferry is Josh Yellman, all right? I'm going to dox the Ticket Ferry.
Wow, okay.
That way we know who to investigate if I do suddenly go missing. I did forget to give out tickets one day this week, and I did start to fear for my safety a little bit. I don't know if I would qualify for like witness protection or anything like that, but I'm doing this for the safety of myself and my family.
It's probably the right move.
And you know what? I see the phone lines blowing up, so thank you all for saving my life. But after that South Carolina Navy game, which I will be able to enjoy because I will simply be alive, 5 o'clock, Air Force and Army. And then on Sunday at 11 a.m., Marshall making a trip here. Don't think we'll have a Byron Leftwich sighting. But Marshall's playing Navy. And then at 4 o'clock, South Carolina takes on Air Force. So we'll take a good look at some of the games this weekend. And here's the projected starters, right? So Riley Goodman, who was the opening day starter, didn't give up an earned run. And I thought Riley looked really good.
I agree.
On the mound. There's a lot of promising stuff there, too. And the thing that I've looked at a lot when it comes to the starting pitchers for this baseball team is, are you striking out a lot more than you're walking? My thing is, I can live with you not getting a lot of strikeouts. That's not the end-all, be-all to me like it is maybe with some pitching evaluators. I value being able to create soft contact and still allowing your fielders to be able to make plays and take care of things for you. But 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, I like that. Yeah, at least strike out twice as more batters as you walk them, and don't give up earned runs. And he didn't do any of that. He'll be facing against projected Trey Addis from Army, who 0-0 record with a 20.25 ERA. He was only pitched 1 1/3 inning this year, did not strike out any, and walked 4. Barbecue chicken alert. Take advantage of it.
I mean, you got to get the bats going early.
Now,
Now, it sounds like.
Army has been making their tour through South Carolina. They started off at Clemson. They got swept in that one. However, in the opener, they ended up losing 3-2, but they did have a 2-1 lead late in that game. I think it was going into the 8th inning in that game. They actually had a lead, just couldn't hold on to it late. And then Saturday, Amp Phillips back on the mound, the guy that I think I was the most excited to see in terms of new pitchers.
And name.
Amped for Amp. Yeah. We can make those T-shirts. We could. That's NIL money.
I was just going to say the same thing.
That's an NIL deal right there. But so far, he's got a 4.91 ERA, 3 2/3 that he went over the last Friday. Struck out 7, walked 3. I expect more. I mean, the strikeout rate is really good. You strike out 7 and 3 2/3. You're doing pretty good. Anytime you're getting over a strikeout an inning, you're at a pretty good rate there. For Navy, Matt Archibald on the mound, 0-1 with a 3.60 ERA. He went 5 innings his last outing, struck out 6, walked 3. So you'll play a little bit better of a starting pitcher against Navy on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Brandon Stone takes the mound once again. He didn't walk any batters his last time out against Northern Kentucky. He did his job, struck out 5 in the process in those 4 innings. ERA of 2.25. And for Air Force, Ethan Dillinger on the mound. No record, 0-0. 13.5 ERA. He has pitched 3 1/3 this year, struck out 4 and walked 2. So, your expectation, Dr. Harvey, I know you did not expect to come in here and get your doctorate this quickly. So, congratulations on the new qualification. I know your parents are going to be very proud. But what are you prescribing for this baseball team this weekend?
3 doses of hot bats. You take one each day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. By Monday, we should see good results, I think.
Visible improvement.
Yeah, we should be able to talk about Monday and say, see?
Took care of business.
I did what I'm supposed to do. That's family medicine for you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I give instructions. You follow them. You improve.
Crazy how that works.
Yeah.
No, I mean, again, though, it just, the way that the offense has kind of been slow to start to this point, early, obviously. But I want to see, especially, you talked about that pitching matchup today. And what a weekend, by the way. A patriotic weekend of baseball. That's
on the same weekend that the United States might win a gold in hockey. Oh, buddy.
Just made me want to run through a brick wall.
USA. Oh, wait, if we can break that out, we can break out some Freebird at Founders Park.
That would be amazing. You imagine? Oh. Anyways, sorry.
Chills.
That's
chills with the possibilities that are endless here.
Just really got me. Yeah, I mean, what a cool opportunity, though. But again, like, if you're South Carolina, if you're Pulmonary, like, I'm preaching strategic at-bats all weekend. Yes, you want the bats to get hot, but, like, one thing I haven't seen, and it was something that I don't think we saw much, if any, of last year, was situational hitting, where you had guys who could put one in the gap if they needed to. Like, they go up there with the intention of putting one in the gap. That was not the case last year. I think we just had a lot of guys who were either home run hitters or maybe cranking out a single every now and then. Like,
right.
But, I mean, the at-bat approaches last year did not seem very, I mean, I don't want to say good, but they just weren't. I mean, there was a lot of strikeouts last year. A lot of guys who would go up to the plate, look at the first pitch, and then immediately turn around and swing at the next 2 when they were sliders outside and they're reaching. And it was a lot of bad situational hitting, and I hope that that's what we see is just much improved at-bats this weekend.
Some plate discipline.
Need it.
A dose of that plate discipline.
Yeah. Hit some bombs. Why
Everyone
not?
loves bombs. I mean, it's not the 4th of July, but we're all into fireworks.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If you can make them happen at Founders Park, you should do it. But coming up next, it is a fantastic weekend in sports because we maybe have the best college basketball weekend that we're going to get until the NCAA tournament. And I'm going to tell you why coming up next here in the early game. All right, so you know how we did the special teams contest through football season? Well, we're finding another way to try to get you money. Nick Harvey, you like money, right?
I love money.
Good. Well, this should perk your ears up here because we have the Crescent Construction Grand Slam Contest. Pretty self-explanatory here. If a Gamecock hitter goes yard with the bases loaded, you could win cash. The pot goes up $25 after every game. Obviously, it's sponsored by Crescent Construction. So if you want to register, now here's the thing. You cannot win if you don't register. Step one is to go to 1075thegame.com to register. Step two is hope that the Gamecocks hit a grand slam. And then if they do, we'll do a drawing to see who gets that money. And the more games that we go without a grand slam, obviously, the bigger the pot's going to be, just like the special teams contest. So go to 1075thegame.com to register for the Crescent Construction Grand Slam Contest.
Taking a look back at the traffic, and there are still no accidents to report. Doing a good job out there, guys. Gamecock softball wins yesterday, 8-1 over Washington. Baseball has a game today at 2 p.m. against Army. Gamecock women's basketball comes away victorious last night, 76-57 over number 25 Alabama. And Gamecock men's basketball hosts Mississippi State tomorrow at home at CLA at 1 p.m.
Oh, this weekend. I'm so excited, man. There's against the world of sports, outside of what we're about to break down, you have all those games at Founders Park. Gonna be a blast. Nick and I, big hockey guys. So the Olympics, obviously, if you didn't see what happened in the women's gold medal game yesterday, look it up.
Please.
Maybe, I don't know, the filthiest game-winning goal you're ever going to see, and it was to win a gold medal against Canada. So if we can get a USA a chant going back on at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, if you need a little bit of patriotism, a little bit of America for your morning to get you going on a Friday, yeah, go watch that goal. I think it was Amanda Keller, I think is her name.
Yeah, I think Amanda or Megan. I think it's Megan Keller.
Megan Keller?
Might have been.
I don't know. Either way, ridiculous. She nutmegged a defender in overtime. You don't get away with stuff like that in overtime. She put a puck between a Canadian defender's legs to the point where she fell down and then just beautifully tucked a backhand past the Canadian netminder. It was like 40. It wasn't long into overtime either. Like it was, man, that was exhilarating. I was at work trying to get the 5 o'clock show on at WIS, and Rick Henry, who I sit right next to, at one point when we tied the game in the third period with the captain, Hillary Knight, legend.
Again, having to score late just to send it to overtime, which is exciting enough.
Magical. Absolutely magical. But Rick, at one point, after I was celebrating that goal, goes, are you going to be able to get that show done? Is it going to go on air at 5 o'clock? Or, are you going to, what's going on here? We scared him, by the way. I cheered so loud when they tied the game that it audibly scared Rick.
You spooked him.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
You got to watch those highlights as you listen to Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue by Toby Keith.
Or just Freebird on repeat. I mean, or just like the 3-minute stretch of guitar solo. I love the Olympics. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. It's exhilarating. And they leave all the best medal sports at the end.
Oh, of course.
I mean, the figure skating yesterday was phenomenal. That was incredible. But yeah, no, the men with a chance to punch their ticket to gold today. And if you turn into WIS News at 5 and there's still hockey going on and you're wondering what I'm doing.
Sweating. Sweating it out.
Yelling in the middle of the newsroom. So, anyways.
But that's one of many cool things that's going on the sports weekend. But the number one thing for me that I'm personally excited for, men's basketball game here at CLA, South Carolina and Mississippi State. Got nothing to do. And want to go watch an interesting game? Because I think that will be interesting. Yeah, South Carolina's struggle. It's been, again, another bad year. But Mississippi State is gettable, right? Mm-hmm. I think they are very gettable. And also that is dependent on what version of Josh Hubbard shows up.
Right.
But we have 2 college basketball games tomorrow that are potentially Final Four previews. 2 of them. Not one, but 2 of them. 3 o'clock on ABC. Number 4, Arizona. Preston Thorne's soul team, right? I have identified them as the team that Preston Thorne would gravitate towards, and he's in. He's in. And they're at Houston at, 3 o'clock, ABC. Should be an incredible basketball game. Obviously, Arizona was the second to last undefeated in men's college basketball because of clearly Miami, Ohio not losing. They've been awesome. But Arizona got beat. They were on a little bit of a skid, but they beat BYU earlier this week. Houston is maybe the best, every year under Kelvin Sampson, they're the best defensive team in college basketball because they're just so aggressive on defense. That's going to be a really fun game. But the one I'm most excited about, 6:30, ESPN, in our nation's capital, Capital One Arena, if you will. Michigan, Duke, number 1 versus number 3. What we have is the number 1 team in the country playing the number 3 team in the country, and the number 2 team in the country playing the number 4 in back-to-back games.
Absolute cinema.
good Lord.
Exhilarating.
This is awesome.
Absolutely exhilarating.
And honestly, if you're just now getting into college basketball, because I understand that's kind of like really the flow of things. Once the NFL season's over and we get all the football out of the way, really the next big event nationally is the NCAA tournament, and everybody fills out a bracket. Tomorrow night is the perfect night to go ahead and get ahead on getting an idea in your mind as to who you would pick to win this whole thing. Because I firmly believe that the 4 teams that we're playing those 2 games that I mentioned are the 4 probably best overall teams. I think the AP's got it right. There's probably the 4 overall best teams in the sport right now. And you're going to get a really good look as to how good they are.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a lot of fun. I like the idea, the fact that Arizona and Houston are playing, like, you get the Battle of the Cats this weekend.
You do. Cougars and Wildcats.
Cougars, yeah, it's going to be fun.
A little cat fight.
Like,
It is a cat fight. This does constitute as a cat fight.
That was good.
But maybe the best type of cat fight you can get. I mean,
Correct.
It's funny because we can joke about the mascot names, but in terms of physicality, Arizona's not afraid to scrap, especially on the boards. Arizona's the best offensive rebounding team in college basketball.
Yeah.
Houston under Kelvin Sampson every year is in the top 10 in offensive rebounding percentage. Like, they're tough. And if you ever want to get fired up, just go to YouTube and search Houston basketball practice Kelvin Sampson. And look at what those guys do in terms of what they do in practice every day. It's no coincidence that they are as tough as they are every single year. They don't just participate in practice, they survive their practices.
Well, now I want to go watch. I'm intrigued.
It's the most physical thing. It's the most physical thing you've ever seen. They'll do rebounding drills where if the ball goes out of the bounds, the ball's still live. And so you have guys that are crashing into the wall trying to get like these rebounds and stuff. Like it's pretty intense.
I love that.
Like they are how they are because it's coached that way.
I mean, I don't blame them. I feel like I would have a similar coaching philosophy. Anything that I would do as a coach involves physicality. We're not going to get pushed around. We might not be the best team out there, but we're going to be physical.
We're going to make sure that after you play us, you feel it.
Yeah, at least you know you were here. Yeah, I agree.
Worst teams to play against, too.
Then, looking at the Duke game, like a Duke team that just got beat by UNC last weekend.
A game that they led all the way up until the last second of the game.
What a game that was. Instant classic, of course it was. But then to see UNC get just destroyed.
Yeah, them losing Caleb Wilson hurts a lot.
Yeah.
We talk about all the great freshmen in college basketball, and Darren Peterson kind of gets a lot of the storylines because of his inability to just play on a nightly basis. Like, he'll play 18 minutes a game, sub himself out, but in that process has like 23 points. That's the type of player he's been. That's how dominant he's been. Right. But the story is him just not participating in the sport at times. But then you have a couple other great freshmen that take the headlines, like Cameron Boozer is one of those freshmen. AJ DeBonsa over at BYU, one of those freshmen. But Caleb Wilson doesn't get talked about enough as being just as good. I think he's the best player North Carolina has had in terms of projection at the next level in at least 20 years.
Yeah.
And he had a fractured hand, and that's obviously
so unfortunate.
Gonna put them out of some discussions for a little bit. But they got worked at NC State.
Yeah, they did.
The other night.
They did. But going back, Duke bounces back with the win over Clemson last weekend, and now, I think obviously it's a neutral site, which is both good and bad. I don't know. Being in DC, I feel like Duke still has the advantage.
Oh, because it's a national fan base. Yeah, they're going to show up and be well represented. Michigan too.
Sure,
I would probably assume though that Duke probably has a stronger contingency.
I think so.
Over there at the game.
What kind of baffles me in this whole thing is that John Shire was a guy who, coming into this whole situation as the Duke head coach, I never would have thought would do what he's done.
Picking up where it left off.
Yeah, incredibly impressive.
Almost like they haven't skipped a beat, but we'll see how they handle the number one team in the country tomorrow. But coming up next, you will never believe this college football offseason headline. If you hear the tone of my voice, you're not going to be surprised. But we'll tell you what it is coming up next. In college football, sometimes making off-season headlines after portal season, not something you want to do. And there is one team that has made headlines again, and for a reason that you would absolutely expect. Because if I told you, Nick Harvey from WIS, that Georgia had two linebackers, Chris Cole and Darren I'm just going to call him Darren I cannot pronounce his last name. Kale, can you pronounce that last name? Are you familiar with this player?
I can try to pronounce it.
We don't have to try.
Okay.
Kinnickbog?
We'll take it. Darren I, as we will refer to him, they were arrested on charges of reckless driving and speeding in Athens. It is another year, another offseason, and our new favorites for the Fulmer Cup, not new favorites, they're always the favorite, the perennial favorites for the Fulmer Cup every year, the Georgia Bulldogs once again making news because players can't get themselves out of trouble.
This is a rough morning.
Like, it's one of those things, too, and, like, I get it. I've gotten my fair share of speeding tickets. Happens to the best of us.
It does.
However, once we get into the reckless driving stuff, and clearly there have been things that have happened of greater and more unfortunate consequence with this program when it comes to this type of thing. But the fact that it just keeps happening every single year is astonishing to me. At this point, like, this is not just a commitment to the bit. Like, this is just becoming, like, a part of the fabric of the program, right? You win football games and you get in trouble with how you violate traffic laws off the field.
How do you think those conversations go with Kirby Smart? Like, they show up in the office, they just got their charges or their ticket for reckless driving and speeding, and you got Kirby Smart sitting down in front of them. Like, how do you, if you could be Kirby Smart, just...
We'll do a little role play here. Okay. I'm Kirby Smart. You just told me what happened to two of my linebackers. I'm immediately doing the hands on top of the head, rubbing the temples.
Right.
Maybe taking off, I don't know if Kirby wears readers or anything, but taking off the readers. He's wearing the visor. I assume Kirby just wears the visor everywhere. I assume it's like glued to his head, but he unglues it. He takes it off, exposing the ring around his head where the hair doesn't grow anymore because the visor's just there all the time, placing it on the table, and then dropping some expletives. After about 5 or 6 seconds of trying to collect thoughts
Right.
and emotion. And here's, like, the wild thing, too, man. At one point, like, I get it if it happens maybe a couple times, and it's like, okay, now we have to have a come-to-Jesus meeting as a team. Clearly, these guys are on the radar locally with how they drive, and one way to not be on the radar is just to keep a lower profile on the road. But the fact that this just happens every year, at some point, because I don't think it's that he just doesn't talk to his team about it, because we've clearly reached a point where it has become, anytime this happens, it is a story now because it continuously happens. So it's not like I don't think he hasn't just talked to his team about it, but at some point you've got to lay down some law somewhere culturally to where it's just not accepted anymore because it just keeps happening.
My favorite thing is I'm looking at the tweet that has, like, the link to the article and everything, and the first comment underneath it just says, "Sun rises in the east, sets in the west." Like, it's clockwork at this point.
It is. It is.
So Chris Cole actually released a statement. I don't know if you guys heard. He released a statement about this.
Okay.
And here's what he said. I want to address the situation from yesterday in Athens, because he posted this yesterday. He said, I recognize the seriousness of this matter and the responsibility that comes with representing the University of Georgia in our football program. I understand that there are high standards for how we conduct ourselves, and I take that responsibility very seriously. I deeply regret the impact and negative attention this has caused for my coaches, teammates, and family. As I continue to grow and develop as a young man, I am focused on making better decisions and learning from every experience. I respect the process and will cooperate fully as the matter is reviewed. I remain committed to upholding the values of our program and conducting myself in a way that reflects positively on my coaches, teammates, family, and the fans who supported us so passionately. I have not seen a Georgia player release a statement like this in a situation like this yet.
Well,
I'll bet it was ChatGPT.
Can we run through an AI detection model here? And if he did type that up, which I hate that I have to even question maybe the validity of any type of statement made by any human being without the assistance of artificial intelligence. Friends, just don't let your brains get weaker. Write your own apologies. Write your own everything as much as you can. But what this tells me, though, he got a chewing.
Oh yeah.
There's definitely a chewing that went down when it came to that.
One of the things that I've come to realize is that, at least recently, that a lot of the guys that were catching these speeding charges were not really playing very much. At least the guys recently. Chris
Right.
Cole plays a lot.
Yeah, I was saying Chris Cole's the one I'm more familiar with.
So Kirby definitely was like, all right, like, you're starting and you're playing. We can't have this happen, and probably ripped him a new one.
Well, then there's a leadership element of it too.
That
right?
too, yeah.
Like, especially in a program like Georgia too, where they'll have players leave, right? But when you're winning like that, you're going to attract a lot of really good talent to come in, and the guys that want to stay and develop and earn their turn to play at Georgia, right? National championship winning program here in recent memory, maybe those consistent staples of the sport right now. Those guys that do end up coming in as like freshmen, sophomores, minor contributors, they build it up so they could be juniors and seniors and be leaders on the team, right? The more you go through your career there, the more you're expected to hold a little bit of ownership and leadership of that football team. And if I'm Kirby Smart, I'm expecting you to have that type of role. You can't be doing the same thing everybody else in the program does that gets them in trouble nationally.
No, you can't.
They should be signing NIL deals with like bail bondsmen.
At this point, or Uber.
I heard
or Lyft.
I heard that combined their bail was only like $25. I could be wrong, but that's what I read the other day.
Well,
which was weird, but
either way, it's another year, another offseason, and Georgia football players are getting in trouble because of traffic violations. Hour number 3 coming up next.
Checking back in on the traffic, and no accidents 2 hours in. Just our long-term road construction that we've all fallen in love with. Weather's pretty nice outside today. 69 degrees, mostly cloudy. A little bit humid, 85% humidity. Got some big games this weekend as South Carolina hosts Army in baseball at 2 p.m. today, and men's basketball hosts Mississippi State tomorrow at CLA at 1 p.m.
The early game, third and long hour starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell. He is Nick Harvey from WIS. Cale Wilson behind the glass. On the audio side of things, our man Thomas in the video production room here at Studio 803. On the video side of things, we can rely for our friends here at 107.5 The Game and the Game Network to be able to get all of this rolling. The same way we can rely on Dawn Staley to walk into Coleman Coliseum and absolutely lay the lumber on Alabama every single time that she plays them. Because maybe the big headline from last night, locally, South Carolina taking care of business. It's a 19-point win at Alabama. And when you're in a run like this and you are in a level, or you've reached a level of dominance in the sport, sometimes the ho-hum wins where you beat a team by 19 on the road, even if they are the number 25 team in the country, sometimes maybe go underappreciated. Or they kind of become mundane because of how easy it can be. I mean, they didn't even shoot well last night from three. They went 4 of 18 from behind the line, but they did what they normally do. They dominate the rebounding. They got the ball inside plenty, made a majority of their shots at the basket, had some key players off the bench have big games. Shout out Maddie McDaniel for being able to give you 27 minutes and not turn the ball over, drop 4 dimes and score 10 points. All of that helps. But what makes this notable is the fact that there is a level of dominance when it comes to Dawn Staley against the University of Alabama. And there's not a lot of things in athletics that you can look at here at South Carolina where you have that much dominance over one program like an Alabama, who's usually pretty good at almost everything, right? Obviously, they are what they are in football. Men's basketball has improved a lot, and they've had some pockets of success in women's basketball. But no matter who it's against, I don't care if it's Alabama, I don't care if it is against Auburn, any conference peer that you play against, when you post a record like this against them, I do find it to be incredibly notable because the win last night makes Dawn Staley 25-0 against the University of Alabama since she has taken over as the head coach at the University of South Carolina. And before last night, so going into last night, Dawn was winning those games, her teams were winning those games by an average of 21.5 points per game. And when going through a lot of these game logs, Nick, it's not just like there was maybe one outlier where you win by 30 plus. There were a couple of 40 burgers in there, right, with fries. There were a couple of instances where you got the full meal. And it wasn't just one or two to kind of skew an average. There are many times that she's gone to Coleman Coliseum and dominated. And specifically at Coleman, she is 12-0.
So you're telling me that you got a big order and you're expecting them to forget something, and they didn't.
That one of the best feelings in the world.
It is one of the best feelings in the world.
Also, one of the reasons why I hate going through drive-thru to order for a bunch of people, especially if it's by myself.
Yeah.
And because I always forget to double check, right?
So do I.
That's on me. You know, like I get home and I can only be mad at myself because I didn't double check. But I will sometimes get home and there's like one or two things missing. I'm like, that's natural. I gave a very large order, right? Sometimes things will not make it into the bag. I get it. I am one that can accept human element failure. But in this instance, if Dawn Staley is going to the Alabama drive-thru She's getting what she wants every single time, and she's getting some stuff for free.
Yeah, if she has to loop back around, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
She
something she's got to
checks.
do.
She checks.
Yeah, it checks every single time. But to be 25-0 against one opponent in your league is just a really good reflection. Because here's the thing too: like when Dawn took over, there were a couple of years where it took building. Right, there was a building element that had to be done to get to where you are right now. Right, if you ever go to Las Vegas and you walk into Caesar's Palace and you're like, oh, this place is amazing. This is massive. Where is Caesar at? Does the real Caesar actually live here? One, no, don't ask that question. Two, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It took building. And even in the process of building, where you might catch some losses here and there to some teams, you might lose to Auburn one year, you'll lose to maybe Arkansas the other, and there's the whole process of getting things together to build what has now been built, which is a Caesar's Palace-esque type program in SEC dynasty here at South Carolina. Even in those years, still not one L caught by Dawn Staley as the head coach at University of South Carolina. It's awfully remarkable, and it's one thing that I did not want to gloss over at any point. And to me, that's the main headline here, is that she continues to dominate that program.
While I completely agree with you, I will add this too, though. For a night like what Tessa Johnson did against LSU last weekend, for her to come out and have a quiet night, and you would think in most instances that would be something that could have cost South Carolina last night, truly. Because what she did at LSU was remarkable. And for her to only have 3 points with 30 minutes on the floor, that's not what we're used to with Tessa Johnson at this point. She's had a couple off nights, but 3 points in 30 minutes is just not Tessa by definition. Yeah. But the fact that they were able to get it done on the floor, and that's where if I'm any other team in the country right now, I am probably a little bit fearful of what South Carolina can accomplish with a team that's not only dominating the floor and picking up points down by the rim, but also when Tessa Johnson and Raven Johnson, when the Johnsons are hot, it's a problem. It's an absolute problem, and everyone should be worried.
Because here's the thing, too. It's not just Tessa going 1 for 8 from 3. It's Raven playing while really under the weather. Like, she had an illness. Dawn revealed after the game that she was definitely under the weather, and, there was a question as to whether or not she would play, but Raven, warrior, goes in there, plays as much as she can. Doesn't necessarily get to maybe the 20-minute mark, but does give you some solid minutes. And so in a game in which your top 2 guards, and really Tanai is, I would say, is obviously in that mix too, but to have one player just struggle to find her shot in that game, which rarely happens, to have another who's your point guard, who is ill and is not close to 100% for that game, to still go out there and dominate the way you did, because you can rely on somebody like Maddie McDaniel to come off the bench. That's why I thought she was so big, is that she can give you 10 points, which, again, scoring's never been my thing with her. When I'm watching her play, she can score 10 points. She can score no points. My thing is, can you facilitate the offense? Can you captain the ship while your starting point guard's on the bench? And can you avoid turning the ball over? And it's another game where she did not turn the ball over in 27 minutes of action.
Extremely impressive. But again, it's scary how good this team is starting. I'll put this into a frame of reference. Obviously, totally different team, totally, men's basketball. But Clemson, for instance, I think might have peaked at the wrong time. They had a really, really good thing going. They go on that West Coast trip. They come back. They're struggling.
Yes.
South Carolina had maybe some turbulence. I'm not a pilot. I'm going to explain this through airplane terminology. There was some turbulence somewhere along the road. They got up above the clouds, and they're basically, I don't want to say on autopilot, because they're still earning wins. They're not just 100%. They're not just really going through the motions at this point. But they're hot at the right time. They're getting really close to the end of the season. They're trying to close out the SEC regular season title. They look dominant right now. It's just incredible to watch what this team does on a nightly basis right now. Since that Oklahoma loss, just hands down one of the most impressive teams to watch in the country.
Best thing that probably could have happened to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was losing that game.
You needed a little bit of humble.
Finding out that you can bleed, right? That you are not immune to catching an L, especially on the road if you're not playing your A game.
And to have performances like this with an injury-riddled team, like with different points in the season where you've had starters out. Last night, you had Raven Johnson battling an illness, playing anyways, doing what you did to Alabama last night with those factors at play. There's no excuse. There's no excuses from this team.
No.
For any reason that they underperform compared to what they would normally do.
It's taken. That's my favorite thing about like a basketball season. Like the football season is one thing, obviously long, but you're playing a game a week. In like basketball and baseball, there are times in the season where you end up having to show some substantial growth throughout the year, and sometimes it is by trial and error because it is such a long season. There are so many games. And with this team, too, I think the best things that could have happened to them is the fact that they've had to have some starters miss time on a team that the roster's not as deep as it's been in years past. There's not going to be any games this year where the bench is outscoring an entire other team. Like last year when they went to Vanderbilt and the bench unit outscored Vanderbilt's entire team. That type of thing isn't going to happen this year. But to get those players valuable minutes, to be able to kind of acclimate them a little more, especially your younger players like your Agat McKeer, your Isla McDowell's, largely beneficial once we get to the stuff that matters the most, which is what's about to be played in Greenville and in the NCAA tournament, and to have that loss against Oklahoma. Some of the best things that could have happened to them, and I think because of that type of adversity, you've been able to see some growth to the point where now you do, even in the big games, like against LSU, against Texas. They play Texas in Greenville. As good as Texas has been this year, and as close as those two games have been, I'm going to expect them to win those games, just because of how they're playing right now. And you're just not going to find a hotter team in the sport outside of maybe UConn because they are beating some lifeless bodies in the Big East. But those are your two best teams in the entire sport right now. And them and UCLA, I'll throw in there, give an honorable mention too. It does feel like we're getting to another collision course. But one thing I wanted to get to before we get out of this segment here, Nick, and I wanted to get your take on this because Preston and I have talked about it a few times this week. And it's because it stems really from Ray Tanner's comments made over the weekend about men's sports being cyclical, right? He kind of chalked up the year that the football team had and the last 2 years the men's basketball team has had and the disaster that baseball had last year as being cyclical. Is that something that you necessarily align yourself with when trying to evaluate the struggles that the men's programs have had on campus?
I've had a tough time with this one all week because I think it's hard to say the word cyclical with an SEC men's sport in general. Like, if it's cyclical, then is South Carolina always one of those middle of the pack to bottom tier teams, and that's the cycle? Is that what you're trying to say?
Right. Well, what is the cycle?
What is it? Right. That's what I want to know. The follow up, right, that I was waiting for is what is the cycle that you're talking about? Because, I mean, the football team, since Shane Beamer has taken over, has had some really high highs, and this past season had their lowest low. And it's been up and down kind of, throughout that tenure. And it's kind of like, maybe that's the cycle that he wants to take. But even still, I don't want that cycle.
No.
I don't ever want a cycle where you're really, really good and then all of a sudden you fall off the face of the earth.
Right.
And that can't happen.
Or you're 4-8 when you're not expected to be 4-8.
Right,
the football
exactly.
team kind of like reflects that. Like it doesn't have to be this way, right? I mean, you look at other programs in the SEC, and every school really has different types of cycles. Do you want to be like what Mississippi State is in most sports, where it's some years you're like in men's basketball, like they'll be in the NCAA tournament more years, I guess, than not, depending on the coach. But their ceiling is maybe second round.
Yeah.
And in football, they had a 9-win season under Mike Leach, and it was considered one of the greatest accomplishments they've had in that program. And we kind of have maybe similar discussions in the high years, but there's a way to make it to where it's not having those years once out of every 10.
Yeah, well, and that's just it. Like, I don't want to be a cyclical team that's like bottom of the standings, and then every 5 or 6 years magically, or every decade magically, one of the teams goes on a deep run, has an incredible season, does some generational things. because I don't want a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Like, I've been supporting this school. I'll be the one to say it. I'm a biased person when I'm on air for the most part. But I went to school here. My dad went to school here. My sister went to school here. Like, I have a long-standing tradition of being a Gamecock fan. And it's really, really tough when you have these really strong, powerful years with football. You see the men's basketball team go to the Final Four, back-to-back national championships for baseball. And here we are over a decade later, and we're in the pits of the SEC. I mean, that's just not – that should not be the cycle. By now, baseball should have gotten itself back into the big dance in Omaha. Basketball should have found a deeper run in March and put together some good runs in the SEC, because they had an opportunity where – the SEC wasn't college basketball's toughest league. Now it's becoming one of the toughest, if not the toughest. Arguably, that's debatable, but now you're behind the 8 ball again. And it's like, where did that gap of time, what got lost on the way there that you couldn't keep building success when you were at the highest high?
And part of that dominance in the SEC is the spending. Now, great American poet and philosopher Christopher Wallace, also known as the Notorious B.I.G., said, "Mo money, mo problems." But does mo money equal more wins necessarily? What else do you have to do, and how can we apply this to South Carolina? We'll discuss next. Problems is a great song, and there is some philosophical truth to that, because sometimes those problems that money gives you can be tax issues, right? And my friends at the Ecton Law Firm are here to help if you fall into that category, whether it is income or personal business tax issues. They can help you out. They are very well versed. John and his team at the Ecton Law Firm understand these challenges that you or your business can face, and they have these proven local solutions that have helped thousands of families and businesses in the state of South Carolina escape that IRS maze. The best of the best in this business. And all you gotta do is call 803-771-9800, where you can set up that free consultation to talk to John and his team about the issues you're facing and how to best fix that. Again, that number, 803-771-9800, or you can always visit them at ectonlawfirm.com. That's ECTON lawfirm.com.
Checking back in here on the traffic as there's long-term road construction. The road construction that everyone loves. But no accidents to report. Gamecock softball comes away victorious yesterday in an 8-1 victory over Washington. And women's basketball comes away victorious in a 19-point victory over number 25, Alabama, 76-57.
Struggles this basketball program this year. One of the more popular things that comes up is the lack of spending on the roster compared to your SEC peers. Now, here's how the sport of men's basketball is changing in the Southeastern Conference. South Carolina did, I would say, about at least quadruple what they spent in terms of the roster from last year, yet it's still the bottom of the SEC for this year. Because everybody else, that spending is going up. And honestly, we're kind of reaching a point in college basketball where the market for players, it's starting to bubble a little bit. Because there are a lot of players that are not playing very well this year that are making a lot of money. There was a story in The Athletic over the summer where a lot of coaches were kind of polled anonymously. And one of them said there are a lot of bad players making really good money, and that makes this market tough. And there are some heavy spenders. So in the SEC, I wanted to take a look at maybe see who some of those heavy spenders were, where they might have failed when it comes to roster construction. Kentucky spent reportedly on a lot of this because it's not very well known. Kentucky spent $22.5 million reportedly on the roster. And right now, a team that is outside the top 30 in offense and defensive efficiency, that is 17-8, I believe, overall, and they're 8-5 in league play, and won't have a shot at competing for an SEC regular season title. And if you poll the average Kentucky fan, they probably don't feel good about their chances of winning the SEC tournament in Nashville. You would say that money wasn't very well spent. Just allocating the money won't necessarily guarantee wins. But there's an example in the SEC, too, of how if you allocate the money and you do it wisely, you're going to get at least a better chance at better results. I think Vanderbilt is the best example of that. Now, reportedly, they spent, I guess, maybe closer to the $10 million mark. And we've seen this year now. Clearly, they've been in a little bit of a rut. But I mean, at the same time, too, at one point, they were one of the last undefeated teams in college basketball. They were the last undefeated team in the SEC. Mm-hmm. And because of the money they spent, it helps. But you also have to land the evaluation. If you look at the teams that are kind of in the market, or not the market, if you look at the teams that are in their neighborhood in terms of spending, you have Texas, Missouri, you have Alabama, maybe technically, I guess, slightly under that, but you have a lot of teams that haven't had the success they have. So what are they doing that maybe other people aren't? Because this can be applicable to South Carolina. Because I'm not saying spend $22 million like Kentucky does. But what I am saying is you got to get yourself competitive in that space and then land the evaluations. Like, for example, one of the key starters for Vanderbilt is A.K. Okereke. He wasn't a highly sought-after transfer portal prospect. He was a 6'7" center at Cornell. And if we brought in a 6'7" center from Cornell or from an Ivy League team, we're probably not going to look at that and be like, oh, I'm ecstatic. Sure. However, he fit a role. There are things that were applicable, right? The guy was built like a Mack truck, so he can at least play power forward and have a physicality level that can raise your physicality as a team. He was only a 31% three-point shooter at Cornell, but he was a really good free throw shooter. Looking at things and say, okay, there's maybe some positive regression that can happen there because he's got good form. We can teach it to where that form is applied further away from the basket where he can become a good three-point shooter. And guess what? He's almost at 40% on the season this year. And he's a really good role player for them. They nailed that evaluation. They said, we need to be able to shoot the three ball. So they got guys that were proven three-point shooters, right? Guys like Tyler Nickel, who is one of the best three-point shooters available in the transfer portal. That's paid immediate dividends. He's one of the best shooters in college basketball. A guy that's constantly in his career above 40% when it comes to three-point shooting. And then, of course, there's landing the high school evaluation because their best player is a local product in Nashville who committed as a senior in high school. And then they got Duke Miles from Oklahoma, which, again, required spending some money to get. But he's a guy that is a 40% three-point shooter in a lot of his stops. And it translated. Sorry. Yeah, a little phlegmy this morning. I guess it's the weather change.
It's warmed
Good
up on
Lord,
us,
yeah. But Vanderbilt, I think, is at least a good example as to where you're never going to spend the $22 million that a team like Kentucky is, but you can get better results if you're able to land evaluations. And that's my thing, too, is that I don't think it's just a money thing. I think money is a big part of it. But when I look at the struggles of this South Carolina team, you didn't land on the pieces to fit and mold together the way the team like Vanderbilt could, even if they do allocate more resources to be able to do it.
Well, and I think you got to give a lot of credit to a program like Vanderbilt because, and I don't just think men's basketball here, I think also football and what they did in turning around their roster coming into this season. They were good last year. They got even better this past season. With men's basketball. They weren't all that great last year. They go into the portal, make some changes, and build a team that complements itself. Like, that's such an impressive thing to do in an offseason is build a rotation of guys who can all in different ways complement one another. Like even the team in the upstate, Brad Brownell did an incredible job losing so many players this past offseason, building a new roster and one that complements itself so well. They've got the tools to do something special, just like they have for the past few years. And that's where you give credit to Brad Brownell, his coaching staff, the scouting staff, because they evaluated properly and built the right roster. I mean, it's evident that Clemson is a good basketball team. Do they have a little rough stretch here? Yes. Do I think that they're still capable of going on another good run here to end the season and make the tournament and do something pretty good? Sure. Yeah, I do, because he's a good coach and he evaluated his talent properly. And that's obviously not the SEC, but I'm just saying if you want to, if you're looking at the in-state aspect of it, give Clemson a lot of credit where it's due. They did a really good job building another roster.
Now, if we want to use our buzzword of the week, cyclical, here's what can be cyclical, right? Is when because you look at what Clemson does on offense, a lot of zoom actions. It's a lot of playmaking from your bigs, right? Where they're in roles where they're doing a lot of dribble handoffs. They're cutting off of off-ball actions away from where the center has the ball. And the center has to be a solid passer. It has to be able to stretch the floor really well. Well, last year for Clemson, Victor Locken was the perfect guy for that because he could shoot the three ball really well. He was also a really good shot blocker, but also he worked dribble handoffs really well. He ran that role perfectly. Now, you look at somebody like Carter Welling, good in the role, not great in the role because he's not the same shooter. And on defense, he's not the same rim protector that Locken was. So that's why they're not as good this year as maybe they were last year. That role wasn't filled like for like, but you're still getting good results regardless of that, right? I think that's the one thing, at least with this men's basketball team here at South Carolina, that's missing is being able to fill in roles where the guys are still really capable of still getting you good results, even if the year-over-year player at that specific role or position isn't as good.
Well, and I think I was watching that Florida game the other night, and there was a couple different instances on defense where they just look. I don't know if I want to use the word discombobulated, but they did. I mean, there was one specific transition that I remember. Florida starts establishing its offense, and they moved so quick that I don't even think South Carolina had fully set into what they were doing on defense before there was an alley-oop and the crowd goes crazy because, again, you catch a guy out of position, he's got his back turned to the guy he's supposed to be guarding, and he makes a highlight reel play and everybody goes nuts on the home court, which you can't have happen.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, I struggle with what they need to do because at this point, yes, I agree, obviously you have to spend some money, but a lot of this comes down to evaluations and the way that you built this roster and the way that it seems to not complement itself. You lived and died by the three ball but you have a lot of nights where you're not shooting the 3-ball efficiently enough.
Most of them. You
Most
have
of
not
them,
shot
yeah.
near well enough to be able to win. Coming up next, we'll conclude our series on All-Star games. Are they obsolete? Well, I have an idea of how you can do one for college that could be pretty fun. I'll tell you what it is coming up next. Now, if you got the competitive juices flowing and you're confident in your golf game and you do love taking advantage of the Golf Zone simulators over at Pro Swing, I highly recommend that you get the homies together and you sign up for the 2026 Spring League. Now, the league starts March 9th. We're getting a lot closer to that date. Spots are filling up fast, so go to ProSwingColumbia.com to go ahead and start that sign-up process. Now, here's one of the best parts, too. You can play in either location, the Chapin location or the Forest Acres location. You get 10 regular season weeks, and then you get 2 playoff weeks for the players that make that playoff cut. It's $40 per round, but the perk of being a Pro Swing member is you can do league play for $25 per round. And, of course, you get 1 round per week. Again, even just hanging out at Pro Swing is a ton of fun. The Golf Zone simulators are awesome. You can play at 300-plus different courses throughout the world. It is an incredible experience, and getting to do it competitively is even more fun.
Still looking at the traffic. You guys have done a pretty good job today. No accidents to report. Just our beloved long-term road construction. Coming up, we're going to be talking about our series on All-Star games and our winners coming up after that.
It's not often we get to break news here on this program. So within the last 30 minutes, Pete Thamel tweets out something that is of note for us here in Columbia, South Carolina. Sources: South Carolina is expected to hire Matthew Smiley as the school's new special teams coordinator. He's worked in special teams in the NFL for more than a decade and was the Buffalo Bills special teams coordinator from 2022 to 2024. He has been a special teams coordinator at Dartmouth, Eastern Illinois, and Charleston Southern before taking that gig in the NFL. So, Joe DeCamillis out. He is now STC over in Las Vegas with the Raiders. And now to replace Joe DeCamillis, Matthew Smiley is now going to take that job.
Quick thought, and it's interesting because, Rich Bisaccia left Green Bay this week. Special teams coordinator, had a stint in South Carolina as well. And it's kind of funny because I saw a lot of chatter on Twitter or X.
It's still Twitter to me. Yeah, I will dead name that app any day of the week.
It's hard not to. But Rich, was well connected, and actually at one point, I think, was sort of kind of quietly a candidate for a head coaching position at South Carolina, years back. But he leaves the Packers as their special teams coordinator this week, and a lot of chatter on Twitter was, Shane, don't do it. Shane, don't. I'm surprised that conversation wasn't a little bit louder to see Rich Bisaccia come back to Columbia. But we don't know what his next steps are. He may be retiring. Right. He might be going. He might already lined something else up. That's a guy with a pretty proven track record that, I'm going to have to do some more research before I can give you a good evaluation.
Right. It's still pretty fresh.
But at least you nailed it down. You got it done. It was quick because the news about DeCamillis was, that kind of went under the radar, honestly.
Very much so.
It just kind of appeared. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, they're searching for a special teams coach. This is something. But no, I Shane knows what he's doing. He did it with Pete Limbo. I think with DeCamillis, we saw still really good special teams. We saw, a lot of punt returns this past season with Vakari Swain. But I think some of that, beamer ball magic here and there was missing maybe with DeCamillis that we didn't see as much as we did with Pete Limbo.
Because it wasn't an elite unit, right? I think one of the things I love about Phil Steele's previews every year is he has his own special teams rankings that takes into account everything on special teams, right? Like how you're setting up your offense, what you're in terms of average yards of kickoff return, punt return, what you're giving up on the other end of it. How efficiently you're making field goals, what your punt net average is, takes into account everything. And under Limbo, you were definitely in top 10 territory, top 5 territory even. It was still fine under DeCamillis. It wasn't the same, right? It wasn't elite. And I think when you kind of conjure up the whole moniker of Beamer Ball, it does insinuate elite special teams. And it's one of those, I like Joe DeCamillis. It was sad to see him go. I get it. A long-time NFL guy.
Fun press conferences.
Right? Very, very fun in the press conference. No friend of Joel Klatt, I would say. Still maybe one of the funniest press conference moments that we had in the season last year. But we'll see. I'm kind of like you. I need to take a deeper dive in Bill's special teams, which I did not think was something I would have to do in terms of how this is going to impact this unit and how, does that make you, I guess, excited about the special teams for next year? It's going to have to do more digging on that, but the void is at least filled right? That's one thing we can discuss with confidence is that the void is at least filled, and now we have a complete coaching staff, barring anything unforeseen in the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Now you can focus on spring ball. And that was the big thing, too, right? Like, we're getting closer and closer to spring practice.
That's right around the corner.
You had to have it done. It had to get done. So just, I don't know, I'm glad that we're not anxiously awaiting to see what he's going to do with a special teams coach before spring practice starts, because
we're trying to find one in the middle of spring practice.
If anything that I know is true from prior experience, special teams is harped on. It's very important at South Carolina football. It's what they start every practice with. When stretches are done, they go straight to a special teams period. So it's emphasized heavily.
Yes.
And again, Shane, I know, has the right guy. I mean, I think he knows what he's doing, and I trust his judgment, and we'll see what happens. I can't wait to watch film.
And before we get out of this segment, too, I do want to give a shout-out. Lynn Falk, our first contributor to the fundraiser we're doing for the American Heart Association, because we have the Heart Walk coming up next month. We're in a fundraising battle with B1067, and I don't want to get bullied around here. I have been tabbed as like the coach for 1075 The Game's fundraising team.
Good.
I just tweeted out the link at 1075 The Game where you can donate to. It's an incredible cause. If you know people, then you know someone who has dealt with heart issues, and the American Heart Association does fantastic work. So it's donating to an incredible cause. And the Heart Walk next month, March 28th, is a really neat event too. Family friendly. Bring the kids, bring the dogs, right? Get that exercise in. Also very informative too, because you can learn CPR in under 90 seconds there, which I think is maybe the most valuable skill anybody can just have.
I am actually an American Heart Association certified CPR instructor.
Look at you.
So,
you are qualified to be a lifesaver.
Yes.
Which I would recommend to anyone.
I teach people to save lives.
Yes.
And it is super important. I mean, I've seen it even as recently my alma mater, my high school, super scary situation, had a kid unfortunately had a health episode at a sports practice this week and collapsed and was given CPR. He survived, and he's recovering. And it's one of those like moments where like I've taught CPR since I was probably, I think 16 is the age where you can become qualified as an instructor. My dad's been teaching for decades, and so I've always taught people and never known anybody who's had to do it after, I taught. And we always teach the teachers at my school every year right before the school year. And the fact that I think a coach had to do CPR, from what I understand and what I've heard, and sorry if I'm sharing too much if anybody hears this that I know, but somebody had to use it, and they saved a life.
Yes.
And
value.
If nothing else, it leaves you with that sense of like what you do and what you can learn. You can learn all these valuable skills for work, whatever. Learning CPR can save a life, and it is more important than any work skill you'll ever learn. Because when the time comes and you need to be ready, you hope you're prepared.
Absolutely.
Because you never know when it could happen.
Absolutely. So help us donate to the cause. We have the link put up on our Twitter account at 1075 The Game. Donate with us. Join us for the Heart Walk. It's going to be a fantastic event. Saving lives is a winner, always a winner. We'll give you our winners for today's show, and I'll throw in what I believe is a winner of an idea for a college all-star game. All of that coming up next here in the early game.
Winners. Winners.
Oh, Coach Singletary, we got winners for you every day. We have winners. Our winners for today's show brought to you by the Golden Spur. And before we get into, I know what is both of our favorite winners for today, I did want to give out that idea because we didn't get to finish like the series because obviously breaking news happens. Got to discuss it because we've done a series on All-Star games all week long. And I know that the Senior Bowl is kind of a cool thing, but it's more so for like an evaluation at the next period. Or the next level, because the practice periods are really what's the most valuable information there. Mm-hmm. In NFL scouts and teams, they have a chance to see how you practice, how you line up in certain drills with pads on, as opposed to just running in your underwear at the NFL Draft Combine. A little bit of a different feel, right? But how cool would it be? And I don't think this is ever going to happen. But if you ever got like an SEC versus Big Ten All-Star game, because of just where those conferences are, they're the two power brokers in the sport, right? They produce a lot of draft picks. A lot of players from both leagues end up going to the next level, end up getting drafted. How cool would it be if we did a college football all-star game that featured Big Ten versus ACC?
I'm all in. You can 100% include me in that. Like, I know we have this, again, you say the Senior Bowl and you get to see somewhat of like a national all-star game, but if we're doing conference all-star games, yeah, I'm all for it. And
that's one of those things really cool in theory. Probably would never happen in practice because of the physical toll that it takes for playing a football game and all that type of stuff. And it's the same reason they don't do a real football game for the Pro Bowl.
Yeah,
risk of injury, everything like that. I get it. But in like my perfect fantasy world here, in an all SEC, all Big Ten conference all-star game would be a lot of fun.
I love it.
I think that would be a winner.
Yeah.
But our golden winner comes by way, Cale Wilson, of a golden goal.
The outlet pass for Keller, a defenseman. Nice move, cuts to the net, score! Megan Keller, the overtime hero, United States, wins gold in Milan.
I think USA deserves to be a winner.
Absolutely.
USA, USA. USA.
USA chant gets more run. That's another gold medal. We'll take it.
It's not done yet either. The men play at 3:10 this afternoon. If you have time, it's Friday. Watch hockey. Watch the U.S. men try to compete to get to a gold medal game. It's going to be entertaining. They're playing Slovakia. They got a chance for redemption because it's the first time in I think over a decade we've seen NHL players back in the Winter Olympics. Mm-hmm. It's very important that Sunday morning at 8 o'clock, if they win today, they got to get through today. But if Canada wins this morning and the U.S. wins today, you could set up yourself for a great rematch and a chance for redemption for the last time NHLers were here and Sidney Crosby broke American hearts.
That game broke me as a hockey fan. There are a lot more football games, basketball games, baseball games that left me heartbroken. There's only a handful of hockey games that have left me like really heartbroken. The overtime Sidney Crosby goal against the United States in what was 2008. I believe, 2008, made me ill.
Yeah.
Made me ill at the time, too, because that was an incredible game just on the surface. But, man, USA had so many chances in that game. This is a fun redemption tour.
And for anybody, I'll give another winner out of this whole sequence of events. Anybody who has a background in sports media, whether it be play-by-play, color commentary, radio host, it doesn't matter. Give credit where it's due to a guy like Kenny Albert, who calls that goal, makes an excellent play-by-play delivery, and then for a minute and 42 seconds after that goal call, let it breathe. Mm-hmm. You let the moment be the moment. I gave a shout-out the last time I was here on Winners to Mike Tirico for doing what he did with the Super Bowl, getting to Milan and hosting primetime coverage. Kenny Albert gets a win today for being one of the best, if not one of, probably the top play-by-play commentator besides Mike Tirico, I think, to exist in a sport that's as fast as hockey is.
Kenny Albert's awesome. And that moment, too, though, because it was such a good game. Canada had that 1-0 lead. Team USA ties it up very late.
With an empty net.
With an empty net, yeah. So they pull the goalie. They bring the extra attacker on the ice. They get the goal. And then Megan Keller makes maybe the sickest winning goal you will ever see. I'm telling you, if you haven't watched it, just go on Twitter or YouTube and just search, obviously, Megan Keller, Team USA goal, and it's the one thing that's going to pop up. It's the nastiest goal you were ever going to see.
Yeah, electric factory.
To win a gold medal at the Olympics, too.
And also give a win to Olympic hockey right now. That's 5 straight games that have gone to overtime with all these medal games. Like all of them have gone to, or now that we've got into medal rounds, since the quarterfinals, we've now seen 5 games go to overtime. And that's what you want when you get into these deep parts. Like you want the electricity of overtime hockey. It's so entertaining. You know, Skip Bayless wants it to be in the NHL. Newsflash. Yeah. It's already in the NHL,
Buddy,
Skip.
They've been doing it. They've been doing the whole 3-on-3.
We've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, like that's kind of how it's been. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll skip. Anyways.
Skip. I do want to give a nice win or two here, too, for the sports weekend that we have at hand.
Yeah.
Obviously, Gamecock baseball, 3 games against 3 different opponents. We get to get more of a feel as to what this team is going to be this year. Women's basketball, we have a game on Sunday. That's good. College game day is here for it, for the game against Ole Miss. Again, a top 20 showdown, so a game against another ranked opponent, and a chance to really put the clamps on winning yet another SEC regular season title. But also on the men's basketball side, nationally, you have Arizona at Houston, number 2 versus number 4, and then Duke against Michigan in Washington, D.C., number 1 versus number 3. You have 2 games that are Final Four level good. So between like Winter Olympics, college basketball, and if you want to spend a good day at the Diamond too, I know my man Jack Veltri, who just walked in, is going to be there. He's going to be enjoying his time over at Founders Park. It is an incredible sports weekend.
I'm going to give a big win to Jack as he walks in, because he's not only wearing a Yankees hat, which is a baseball team that I love and support, he's wearing an American flag Yankees hat for a patriotic weekend of baseball. You can't write it any better, Jack.
Yes.
Let's go. Come on. Come on.
Patriotism also a winner in sport. Sports patriotism, too. It really having its moment this weekend. Yes.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I'm excited. I don't know if you can see it on the, like, I'm glowing right now. I just feel so good about the sports weekend ahead.
Between the Salute the Troops weekend and what we got going on with the Olympics right now, it's exciting.
Quinn Hughes sees ghosts. They speak Italian. And hopefully he scores another game winner today. That'd be a lot of fun.
In terms of just like players who look like they have no thoughts, just vibes, Quinn Hughes number 1.
If you don't know who, that's another Twitter search. Please look up Quinn Hughes.
Oh, absolute hilarity ensues after that. Your winners for hanging out with us today, as always, brought to you by the Golden Spur. Jack Veltri and Tyler Head in the Extra Point. They're getting patriotic. They're going to be winners, and they're next.